What's up? What's up? What's up? I am so excited. This is Relatively Sports with yours truly, Eugene Napoleon, my new show. This is the first episode, and I'm so excited. So, we will air every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, just to let you know, Relatively Sports with Eugene Napoleon is a little bit different concept than what I've done in the past. So, I'll be going over different topics. Each week will be a different topic. I'll have guests on. So I'm real excited about that. So today's show is just to bring you up to speed of what Relatively Sports with Eugene Napoleon is all about. So for instance, like I said, I'll be talking about recruiting, tracking student athletes in their process as they're looking at schools, and starting from as early as, believe it or not, Pop Warner, from Pop Warner to middle school to high school, and obviously their college choices from their freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year in high school. I'm talking about tracking them from that whole process all the way through, which is a little bit different perspective when you're actually talking to the parents and to some of the potential student athletes. So this is going to be really hot. From time to time, I'm going to talk about my time and my years at WVU, and my experiences, which I'm excited to share, with you fans, and just really get in depth with some of the things that maybe you didn't know about my time at WVU. The hot topic segment of Relatively Sports is going to focus on the guests that I'm going to bring on my show, which I'm real excited about, because that's going to be from a bevy of sports backgrounds, from maybe baseball, basketball, track, football, all these different types of sports we're going to tackle with actual live guests on Relatively Sports with Eugene Napoleon. So that's what you got to look forward to every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm excited about it. I thank God for this opportunity. And this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun for me. So today, which is interesting, right? I want to kind of pivot a little bit. So obviously, I'm sure not only me, but I'm sure you're excited about what's about to happen Thursday night, September 1, right? Everybody knows what that is, right? That is West Virginia at Pitt. I'm not going to get too much into it right now, but I'm just going to just really skim the surface a little bit about where my head is with this. If you didn't know, for those who don't know, I actually attended Pittsburgh. I attended Pittsburgh my freshman year, 1985, right? And so I'm on both sides of the Backyard Brawl, basically, right? Both sides. I've experienced it from being a Pitt Panther. And then, of course, when I transferred to WVU, I experienced it, my career there for 3 years as a WVU Mountaineer. So it's talking about both sides of the aisle, from seeing it from Pitt's point of view and then seeing it in a West Virginia uniform. Real interesting, right? Really interesting. So let me share this little ditty with you. As a Pitt Panther, seeing it from that perspective, I was always a competitor. So I didn't get, obviously it was a whole bunch of hype around that game. It is the Backyard Brawl. It's called that for a reason, obviously. So of course I was excited as a true freshman. I didn't get redshirted. So I traveled as a true freshman at Pitt. And coming to Morgantown to play the Mountaineers in a Pitt uniform was a real interesting, experience for me and along with my fellow teammates. But it does not compare to when I transferred to West Virginia and then going to Pitt, and then conversely having Pitt come into Morgantown, and now I'm in a West Virginia uniform. Oh man. For some odd reason, it is a totally different feeling. It's a totally different experience, obviously, when you're in that West Virginia uniform versus me playing in a Pitt uniform. And I think for me, I can't speak for all, but for me personally, I think a lot of that had to do with the circumstances around, me leaving Pitt and coming to West Virginia and being there and kind of understanding the difference between what it meant for a Pitt Panther to play in that backyard brawl compared to what it meant for a West Virginia Mountaineer to play in the backyard brawl. It's two different emotions, to be honest with you, and I experienced both. So, I'm looking so forward to Thursday night, September 1st, because I know to rekindle this, this rivalry. Let me tell you something. We haven't played Pitt in years, so I'm hoping. It's hard to explain to these younger players now who just, got to West Virginia, and some of the ones who are there going into their senior and junior years who don't really understand this rivalry because we haven't played in this rivalry, right? So it is one of the biggest collegiate rivalries in any sport between any two schools that you could imagine. So to open up against Pittsburgh, wow. My heart was pumping out of my chest when we got that on the schedule, because I know how big that game is. And the current players, you'll know how big it is when you come out of that tunnel at Pitt that Thursday night, September 1st. Trust me, you'll feel it. Words won't do it any justice. You will feel how big that moment is going to be when you're in a West Virginia uniform coming out at Pitt. Man, I'm sure it will be a colossal feeling. Trust me, because I know how I felt. Now, I want to segue into something that is tough. As I said, I attended Pittsburgh my freshman year in 1985. And in that freshman class, it was a lot of us, a lot of great players, one of which was a really close friend of mine, and we lost him, unfortunately, June 22nd. Tony SIRAGUSA, the Goose, passed away in his sleep at his home in New Jersey. And I just want to, just for a minute, I want to pivot and just talk about my good buddy for a second, if I may. What a great guy! What a great guy! Like I said, Tony and I went into Pitt as freshmen in that 1985 freshman class, and oh my God, what a great dude, man, on and off the field. But what a jokester, just a jovial spirit, a great dude, man. Goose used to run in my room and like I said, just a prankster. We had such great moments during my freshman year at Pittsburgh before I transferred to WVU. And, he and I talked a lot. Goose was from Kenilworth, New Jersey. And of course, I was from Jersey City. So, like at any school, if you're from the same state, you naturally have a clique. You naturally have a bond. So we bonded immediately. Just being able to come in as true freshmen together, and you're in that clique, that blood, sweat, and tears element that you feel as true freshmen coming in. And, obviously Goose wasn't redshirted either. So we spent a lot of time during our freshman year at Pitt together, just going through, really navigating what it meant to come out of high school, go into a big time program, go through camp, not be redshirted. These are things that when you're doing it together, you pretty much form even a closer bond. And the guys who get redshirted, they also they pretty much grow closer together as well, because you're dealing with the same exact experiences. You're a true freshman, you're at a big time program, the expectations are through the roof. Coaches make the decisions for whatever reason. Okay, we're not going to redshirt you. We need you to play right away. We need you to play during the season. We know that. So, you're not going to be redshirted, but you're going to be redshirted. You guys are growing, going through the same experience, and then it kind of pivots a little bit and it separates. But for Goose and I, and some of the other ones who were not redshirted, it was interesting. It was a process that you had to learn real quick what this thing was about, this big time major college football. And both of us were highly recruited. I mean, I was one of the most highly recruited running backs in the country coming out of high school. So, All American, all that stuff. So being able to share these things with your fellow freshman teammates that were in the same position you were in, that was special onto itself. But with Goose, I remember times when, man, this he would run in my room and pick me up and slam me on my bed. You know what I mean? And run out, just cackling and laughing. And, again, he was just such a jovial guy, such a fun-loving, just full of laughs guy, bigger than life, man. And I remember when my sister died, my sister died my freshman year at Pittsburgh. She was my oldest sister. And, he had just spoke to her on the phone a few days prior to that. And she was planning on coming up to the game. We were playing at home against Boston College. And unfortunately, she passed away. She had an aneurysm of the brain. And most of my freshman, teammates who if they were hanging out in my room, they know I was very close, to my sister. So if they were in there when she would call, I'm on the phone with her, of course, they would talk to her, and Goose was one of those guys who had a chance to talk to her. And I remember that conversation, man, like it was yesterday. It was just so interesting and just, again, just so full of life and talking about, how good we were doing and looking forward to meeting her in person and all these things. I mean, that type of guy, you understand, that type of charismatic personality that, Goose for me was a one in a lifetime talent for the things that he went through to get to where he was out of college into the NFL and to have such a long and prosperous and such a great career. I was very proud and happy for him, my buddy. When I transferred to West Virginia, he and I spoke a few times. And of course, Goose being Goose, he would tell me what he's going to do to me if he caught me, So we would kind of just goof on each other and rattle each other's cages. But let me tell you something, man. Definitely big time competitor, big time talent, big time heart. And Tony SIRAGUSA is one in a million, man, and he's going to be missed. And anyone who's had the pleasure of meeting him, they know what I'm talking about. They know what I'm talking. If you've ever had the pleasure or been blessed to be in the same room with this man, you know what I mean when I say heart just bigger than life itself. So I just wanted to take this little bit of time and to really pay homage to my guy, because we're talking about Pitt, and to me, you can't talk about Pittsburgh football without talking about the Goose. So rest in peace, my friend. Godspeed. To your family and you're missed. You're missed. So I want to say, with Relatively Sports, what this is for me is an opportunity to talk about just all different aspects of sports. Like I said, from the recruiting aspect of it, really even talking about, and I'm going to have some parents on as guests as well, because I really want to show the total perspective of what the baseline and what sports really, what it really means and what it can mean, to these young people and to their parents and to these coaches. So this gives me an opportunity in a little bit of a different lane to really talk to some of these coaches that are actually in the trenches. So when I say have an opportunity to interview some really great people, I'm talking about, like, okay, for instance, I'll give you for for instance, some of my guests that are already lined up, you know, my former, wide receiver, you know, one of my best buds, Donald Jones, who played some years for the Buffalo Bills and then signed with the New England Patriots. Donald's actually from Plainfield, New Jersey. So I'm going to have him on as a guest. For those who follow street basketball, one of the greatest companies, when you think of street basketball back in the day, you think of And One, the shoe company, right? Well, I was fortunate enough to represent 80% of that roster. For those who don't know, I was a former sports agent for 10 years when I retired from playing. So I was blessed to represent 80% of that And One roster. Well, one of the biggest names in street basketball, a legend, Wally Dixon, AKA The Main Event. He's going to come on Relatively Sports with Eugene Napoleon and talk about basketball from a totally different perspective, not just from a street basketball perspective, but from a collegiate perspective. He went to college, went to Rutgers. He's going to come on and talk about his recruiting process and what it meant, for him and how that process went, again, from a basketball perspective, from helping to build an entire brand with And One. He's going to come on and talk about that. Again, I have a baseball coach that's going to come on and talk a little baseball. I can't give this particular guest away, but I'll say this. He is a mega name. So I'm going to hold that one under my hat. But I'll say this. This particular guest, when he comes on, it will be the interview of all interviews. I'll say that. Again, he's a legend in his own right, a super legend. So I'm working on that particular interview as we speak, and I'm excited about that. Next week, I'm honored. I will have the cornerbacks coach from Sacred Heart University, which will be my first guest. He will be on my show next week, God willing, which is the 26th. And it just happens to be my son, Brandon Napoleon, will be on Relatively Sports with Eugene Napoleon next Tuesday, which is the 26th. That he will be my very first guest. And we're going to talk everything from his process as to what he's doing now as the corners coach at Sacred Heart University to his road of recruiting and everything under the sun. We're going to talk about his journey into coaching after playing. So I'm super excited about this because, again, Relatively Sports gives me a platform to bring in guests from all walks. I'm going to get my nephew on here, the all-pro left tackle from the Buffalo Bills, Dion Dawkins. Depending on his schedule, we will have him lined up to be on Relatively Sports with yours truly. So, like I said, this is going to be big, and I'm super excited about it. Of course, we're going to talk all things West Virginia. You know that. You can't have Relatively Sports with Eugene Napoleon and not talk Mountaineer sports. So we're going to cover some bases on that as well. So I am super excited. This week, this particular show, kicking this off, this was more of an introduction of what's to come and what I wanted you, fans and people to really understand what this is all about and what this platform will bring. And I'm so humbled and blessed to be in the position to do this, because I think whenever you have a chance to share with everyone just some of the experiences, that in itself is a blessing. Whenever you have a chance to kind of speak and also put some things out, because look at it this way. What West Virginia did for me was allow me to grow from a young man into a man during my time there. And I think having the ability to give some of this information back and some of my experiences back on this type of platform is amazing. So that's exactly what I'm going to try to do. And even when I bring my guest on, for them to speak from their own perspective, and of course, I'll have questions and they'll have a chance to kind of elaborate on the questions that I have and kind of get into a back and forth with the Q&As that really mean something. I want my show to be informative as well. I want, the fans to walk away from Relatively Sports learning something that they didn't know about certain people, or learning something about a profession that they may have had questions about, or it's just because it's Relatively Sports, that hot topic segment where that's the guest driven segment of it. It's cool to have so many different types of guests from so many different industries. I think it keeps the show spicy. I think it keeps it moving. I think it keeps it informative, and I think it keeps it fun. So that's what it's all about. Relatively Sports. It's not just football. It's going to be, like I said, all different types of sports with all different types of people and personalities and perspectives and experiences, which I think will keep my show really, really special. And that's what I'm looking forward to. So once again, Relatively Sports with Eugene Napoleon. It will air every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. So be sure to tune in. Be sure to tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell one that will tell many. And that's how you keep this thing growing. And with that being said, I look forward to seeing you every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You already know what I'm going to say at the very end of this. Let's go Mountaineers. I'll see you next week.